There's a place in the Nevada desert where the government didn't just hide weapons, it hid the truth that those weapons existed at all. No official sign says Area 51, no tourist brochure tells you where it is, and for decades, the US government would not even admit it was real. But here's the twist, the biggest secret of Area 51 might not be aliens, it might be that the myth of aliens became the perfect camouflage for something far more real. Tonight, we separate what's documented from what's legend, and follow a timeline that starts long before UFO memes, long before Bob Lazar, back when the Cold War turned the sky into a battlefield. Because once you see what Area 51 actually did, you'll understand why people still think it's hiding the impossible. In this documentary, we're going to do 3 things. 1. Build a timeline of Area 51 using publicly documented sources, declassified CIA histories, official maps, and aviation records. 2. Examine the most famous myths and test them against what we can verify. 3. Answer the real question. Why did the mystery explode here? Why Area 51, of all places, became the center of modern UFO culture? And just to be clear, we're not leaking secrets. Everything in this video is based on public sources, including CIA declassifications. So, what is Area 51 really? Area 51 is the popular name for a highly secured facility near Groom Lake, a dry lake bed in southern Nevada. It sits inside what's now known as the Nevada Test and Training Range, tied historically to Nellis Air Force Base operations. Why here? Because Groom Lake is isolated, hard to reach, and surrounded by restricted military land. The dry lake bed also makes a natural runway, flat, wide, and perfect for experimental aircraft testing. And that word, experimental, is the key. Area 51's core purpose, as supported by declassified history, wasn't aliens. It was testing aircraft the world was not supposed to know existed. But to understand why, we have to go back to the 1950s. After World War II, the US and the Soviet Union entered a new kind of war, not fought with armies, but with information. The United States needed to know, how many bombers does the USSR have? Where are the missile sites? What's being built behind the Iron Curtain? Satellites weren't ready yet, so the only way to get answers was to go higher than any plane had ever gone, and fly over the Soviet Union. That meant building a new aircraft, one that could climb above Soviet defenses. This leads directly to the program that helped create Area 51's legend. In 1955, the CIA and Lockheed Skunk Works, led by legendary engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson, needed a remote test site for the U-2 spy plane program. According to declassified CIA history, Johnson and others scouted locations, and Groom Lake stood out. Remote, secured, and perfect for flight testing. The facility was developed quickly, under intense secrecy. It acquired multiple codenames over time, one of the most famous being Watertown, a reference to the CIA's director at the time, Alan Dulles, who had ties to Watertown, New York. So Area 51 began not as a UFO vault, but as a secret runway for a new kind of spy plane. The U-2 could fly far higher than commercial aircraft of the era, into altitudes where, in the mid-1950s, almost nobody expected to see anything. Pilots and civilians began reporting strange, shiny objects high in the sky, moving in ways they couldn't explain. Here's the key point. The CIA later acknowledged that high-altitude testing contributed to a wave of UFO reports. Think about it. If you're a civilian in 1956 and you look up and see a bright object at extreme altitude, an aircraft that officially doesn't exist, what would you call it? A UFO. And because the program was classified, the government couldn't simply say, "Don't worry, that's our secret spy plane." So the mystery grew. And the U-2 was only the beginning. By the early 1960s, the U-2 was vulnerable. In 1960, a U-2 piloted by Francis Gary Powers was shot down over the Soviet Union, proving that altitude alone wasn't enough. The next solution was speed. The CIA backed a new aircraft, the A-12 Oxcart, a sleek, black plane that pushed the limits of what was physically possible, built by Lockheed. The A-12 program is strongly tied to Groom Lake in declassified accounts. Testing such an aircraft required isolation, secrecy, and space, exactly what Area 51 provided. And again, imagine what people might see from far away. A black aircraft, unfamiliar shape, extreme performance, disappearing into restricted skies. For the public, it doesn't look like an airplane story, it looks like a mystery. Alongside manned aircraft, experimental unmanned systems were developed in this era too, like the D-21 drone designed for reconnaissance. Many specific operational details remain debated, but the larger pattern is clear and supported by declassified histories. Area 51 functioned as a development and testing environment for programs that were years, sometimes decades, ahead of what the public knew. And that gap between what existed and what the public believed possible is the exact space where myths thrive. But the project that truly weaponized secrecy and reshaped modern aviation came next: stealth. Stealth wasn't a single invention. It was a breakthrough in design, materials, and physics, reducing radar detection in ways that made aircraft appear almost unreal. The early stealth demonstrator program, known as HAV Blue, led to the aircraft the world would later know as the F-117 Nighthawk. And this is important. For years, the F-117 didn't officially exist. But people near Nevada saw strange craft flying at night. Angular shapes, unfamiliar silhouettes, silent approaches, unusual flight paths. If you saw that and the government denied everything, what would you think? This is why Area 51's story is so powerful. Because unlike pure conspiracy, there really were aircraft here that looked alien compared to what the public knew. The reality was strange enough to create the myth. When you can't explain what people are seeing, because explaining it would reveal classified programs, you create a vacuum. And in that vacuum, three forces grow. 1. Speculation. People connect dots with limited information. 2. Distrust. Secrecy looks like deception. 3. Storytelling. The human brain hates unfinished narratives. Area 51 became the world's biggest unfinished narrative. Now, it's time to confront the myths. The most famous UFO incident in American history is Roswell 1947 in New Mexico. But Roswell is not Area 51. Different state, different context, different timeline. Could items from Roswell have been moved elsewhere? People speculate, but public documentation doesn't provide confirmed evidence that Roswell debris or alien bodies were stored at Area 51. What is documented is that the late 1940s and 1950s were filled with secret aerospace research, balloons, high-altitude programs, reconnaissance, some of which were classified for decades. Roswell and Area 51 became linked culturally, not necessarily historically. This is the myth that powers the entire legend, that Area 51 is where alien technology is studied. Here's the reality. The strongest documented evidence about Area 51 points to advanced human aerospace programs, U-2, A-12 stealth testing, supported by declassified CIA histories and the known role of the Nevada test ranges. Alien reverse engineering claims rely mostly on anonymous testimony, secondhand stories, and popular media narratives. That doesn't automatically prove they're false. It means they are not documented in verifiable public records. But there is one name that shaped the modern era of this myth more than anyone else: Bob Lazar. In 1989, Bob Lazar went public claiming he worked on alien technology at a site called S-4 near Area 51. His story exploded and became a blueprint for modern Area 51 mythology. But when we apply this standard documentary test, verifiable records, consistent documentation, corroboration, the claims become highly disputed. There is no widely accepted public documentation confirming S-4 as described
Lazar's employment details as claimed, or the existence of recovered alien craft at Area 51. Supporters argue records were erased. Skeptics argue the story's inconsistencies are disqualifying. The honest conclusion is this: Lazar's story remains unproven in public evidence, yet culturally influential. And that distinction, influential versus verified, matters. Here's where the story turns. For decades, people joked that Area 51 was too secret to admit. But in 2013, CIA documents released through FOIA-related processes and archival releases included references that effectively acknowledged the base's existence and role, particularly in connection with the U-2 and A-12 programs. This didn't confirm aliens, it confirmed something more grounded and historically important. Area 51 was a real place tied to real programs that shaped the Cold War. And once the government admitted that much, it raised a new question. If they hid this for decades, what else might still be hidden? That question keeps the legend alive. We can't verify current classified programs, but based on the location, infrastructure, and the base's historical function, analysts commonly infer it remains connected to advanced aircraft testing, drone development, sensor and electronic warfare work, and evaluation of captured or foreign technology, human technology, under controlled conditions. Another famous detail: aircraft, often nicknamed Janet flights, have been observed transporting workers from Las Vegas to secure locations tied to the test range. An openly discussed aviation curiosity, though mission specifics are not public. The point isn't to pretend we know everything. The point is that Area 51's real story, advanced aerospace secrecy, still fits what we observe.
Area 51 is the perfect conspiracy engine for 4 reasons. 1. Secrecy is real. Unlike many myths, this place truly was hidden. 2. The tech was unbelievable. Stealth aircraft looked like science fiction. 3. The desert isolates truth. Almost no one can independently verify anything. 4. Culture rewards the myth. Movies, shows, internet fame, and tourism keep the story circulating. And there's a psychological factor too. People often prefer a cosmic explanation, aliens, over a human one. Spying, war, and secrecy. Because aliens are mysterious. But the Cold War? The Cold War is scary. Here's the real takeaway. Area 51 didn't need aliens to become the greatest secret on Earth, because it already held something astonishing. Proof that governments can build technologies so advanced, they bend what the public believes is possible. And when people witness the impossible, but are told it never happened, they don't stop searching. They invent explanations. Some are wrong, some are exaggerated, some are stories designed to sell books. But a few are warnings. Because the most important mystery of Area 51 isn't what's under the hangars. It's what happens when truth becomes classified, and the world is left to fill the silence with myth. So the next time you hear Area 51, ask yourself, is the myth hiding the truth, or is the truth hiding behind the myth?